Good afternoon. The Shir is La'ilat Nishmas Tzvi Dov Ben Chaim Pesach. Moving on up. And Nishmas, my parents, of course, and Eliyahu Ben Fega. Ela Nishmato, and my dear parents, and my dear son, Rosh Shmuel Chaim Ben Tzion Avi Ephraim. It's amazing that this week's Parsha came out the week of Purim. If it wasn't a leap year, this would be Purim. But it's amazing how many hints there are to Purim in the Parsha, without a Bible codes. Purim is actually found in this week's Parsha, which is amazing because Purim happened over 9 centuries after the Torah. So how could the Torah possibly be in Parshas Tisa, which is the week of Purim? This week is Purim. Tuesday, when, right? But how did he know what's going to happen 9 centuries? But some people say, I'm from Missouri, show me.
Yeah, but we're not from Missouri.
Nechama, you got to see this. Please look at Exodus 30, Pasuk 22. If this doesn't convince you, if this doesn't convince the Reform rabbi that there is a God who wrote the Torah, because they believe that man wrote the Torah. The deformed rabbis, unfortunately.
And so the conservatives.
But if they take a look at this, how could they argue, Chana? Look at Exodus 30, Pasuk 22.
30?
30, 22.
30, 22.
Yes, every Jew with 22. Exodus 30, Pasuk 22. Actually, Pasuk 23, Slicha.
23. Yeah.
Exodus 30, 23 says, you shall take psamim, atokach v'cha psamim rosh, mor deror. This is speaking about the spices for the incense. So you shall take the chief spice is mor deror. Mor deror. Like Chanel number 5 or whatever it's called. I don't know. Charlie, what? Oh, Ruvain, if you have a unculus there,
I know we need it.
look at Uncle Unculus. Reb Ruvain, look at Uncle Unculus. Pasuk Chav Gimel. At Sab Loch Busmin. Reisha Mara Dechaya. Mordechaya. Says the Gemara in Chulin, page 139, in Israel, that this is actually speaking about Mordechai. Because Morderor in Aramaic means Mordechai. What does that got to do with bees? So Talmud in Chulin 139 says, just like Mor was the chief of all the spices among the incense, 11 herbs and spices. That's where the Colonel got it from. Moshe, you know that? The Colonel got it from. You see it? The KFC, 11 herbs and spices. Yeah, he had a long white beard, the Colonel. You remember?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know he got it from that.
11 herbs and spices.
Why 11?
Right? Why 11? So the chief of the spices was Mor, and Mordechai was the chief of the Sanhedrin.
Right.
Chief. Okay. So here you have a hint to Mordechai in the Parsha that usually falls out on Purim Aram. Morderor, Unkula says Mordechai. Just like Mor was the chief of the spices, Mordechai was the chief of the Sanhedrin. But it gets much better than that, Ruvain. Fasten your seatbelts. Rav Weissmandl, the one who survived, who jumped from a moving train in Auschwitz, Rav Weissmandl, wrote a book called Torah's Chemed, the Torah of Desire. And in it, he counts the letters in the Megillah. He said there are exactly 12,110 letters in Megillat Esther. And he did this without a smartphone or a dumb phone. In the 1920s, he wrote the books today, Chemed, and he said the Megillat Esther has exactly 12,110 letters. So what?
110?
Right. So what? He says if you count from the mem in the word Morderor, which is Mordechai, if you count from the mem onwards, 12,110 letters, you're going to get what? A resh. Count from that resh another 12,110 letters, you're going to get a dalet. Count from that 12,110 letters, you're going to get what? Kaf, and count 12,110 letters, you're going to get what? A Yud. So the amount of letters in Megillas Esther is 12,110 letters. from the men here in Mordechai, we speak about Mordechai, you count 12,110 letters, you're going to have the name Mordechai in the Torah. That's pretty amazing, huh? Now what are the coinky-dinkies about that? Avi, what are the coincidences about that? What are the chances of that happening? Now how could you deny that a divine being wrote the Torah? How would any human being know that the amount of letters in the Megillah and the amount of skipped letters that spell out Mordechai is exactly the amount of letters contained in the Megillah?
It's from the Mem of Mordoror, too.
And the Mem of Mordoror, which is Mordechai. Okay? Pretty amazing, right? You ain't heard nothing yet. He says, Rav Weissmandel's Atzal, he jumped from a moving train and survived Auschwitz. He said, if you count, this is Mordechai, if you count from the first Aleph in Bereshis, the word Bereshis has an Aleph. If you count from that Aleph, 12,110 letters, you're going to get a Samach. And you count another 12,110, you get a Taf. Count another 12,10, you're going to get a Resh. So Mordechai and Esther are encoded in the Torah in exact space letters that contain the entire letters of what? Megillah. So Mordechai and Esther, again, 9 centuries before the Purim miracle happened, their names are encoded in the Torah by the amount of letters that the entire Megillah what? Contains. So how could you deny a divine being writing the Torah? Moshe doesn't make any sense, right? How to deny it? Here you have it. What are the chances of both Mordechai and Esther being encoded in the Torah by the exact spacing of the letters, each one equidistant of the exact amount of letters that are contained in the entire Megillah, which is 12,110. Remember, this is the Parsha that usually Purim would fall out. Okay? But it's even more than that. It's endless. It's just endless in this Parsha where you have Purim, according to the Sam Sofer, where you have Purim. If you flash forward to Exodus 33, Pasuk 23. 33:23.
That's still this week's Parsha.
Still this week's Parsha, of course. Still had to be this week's Parsha. Exodus 33:23.
Yeah.
So Moshe is hiding in the cleft in the rock, right? God says, I will cover you with my hand, whatever that means. We know God doesn't have a hand, right? But the Torah speaks in the language of men. I will cover you with my hand, and you will see my back, but uponai lo yero. Ritet achorai, you'll see my back, but my face you will not see. But God doesn't have a face. Avi, one of the animamas is that God is not what? Ein loy de musaguf, ein oiguf. So obviously it's a metaphor, says the Sam Sofer. This parsha always falls Purim time. Purim, this is Purim. Uponai lo yero. Vonochi astir ponai bayoim ahu. Deuteronomy 30. Where's Esther found in the Torah? Deuteronomy 30. Vonochi astir ponai. God says, I will hide my face. Because Megillah Esther is the only book where God's name is not written. So it's Deuteronomy 30, Astir Ponai, but the Sam Sofer says it's here. Read that Ponai lo yero. You can't see my face in the Megillah. Because God's face is covered up. Everything looks like a string of coincidences.
Rabbi?
Esther just happened to win the beauty contest. Was she the prettiest girl? Mordechai and Esther, Mordechai just happened to walk by when Bixen and Sarah were plotting, right? And then Haman becomes what? Everything looks like a string of coinky dinkies. Veritet achorai, only at, what does achorai mean, Ruben?
Right back.
At the back, afterwards. When you connect all of the dots, the Purim story played out over how many years? 14 years, Avi. 14 years it played out. Uponai lo yaro, while it's happening, you can't see my face, what's going on? Why did this Beis Yaakov girl, this tzaddikus, be taken by the Slav? Makes no sense. Couldn't he find a prettier girl? This righteous prophetess to degrade herself? It makes no sense. And she won the beauty contest? What about Miss Puerto Rico? It's a chorai. What does a chorai mean? 14 years later, afterwards, when you connect all the dots, you'll see the hand of God. Uponai. But while it's happening, lo yaro, you can't see it. Yes.
This is happens to be one of my favorite pasukim of the Torah.
This puzzle, you can spend a year on it. Go ahead.
I didn't know the form until you just explained.
Okay, glad you came.
Real quick, on one foot, the last 4 words which you just quoted. Acharai upanai lo yiro.
Go ahead.
Acharai upanai is equal exactly to 365, like the number of days of the
year.
year. Also the negative commandments. I'm going on the negative commandments.
Right.
And the next 2 words, lo yirau, is 248. So you have your
Incredible. This is
613
the positive.
commandments. Exactly how
Wow, Reuven. Wow.
He said the first 2 words.
Chorai uponai, a gematria 365. That's how many negative commandments are on the Torah. Reuven, you should come up here and sit next to me. Huh? There's room for 2. The camera, pretty interesting. 365 negatives, and Le'yaro is 248 positive. Okay? So here you have again, Purim, God hides his face. So you can't see him. The only book that he doesn't have his name in. But Achorai, but after the miracle, Avi, now we connect the dots why Esther had to win the beauty contest. Oh, and why Mordechai had to overhear the plot. It's not a coinky-dinky, even though it looks like it's a coinky-dinky. Okay? But you're still not finished. Again, this Parsha always comes out the week of Purim. Just amazing. It's endless. Look at the end of the Parsha. Exodus 34, Pasuk 33. Exodus 34, Pasuk 33. Moshe came down the mountain and he had the skin on his face, right? So it says in Exodus 34, verse 33, Vaychal Moshe medaber itam, vayiten al panav masveh. How does English translate that?
Put a veil over his face.
They say veil, but mask. Mask. That's the Hebrew word for mask in modern Hebrew. Masveh, the English word mask. Moshe Kawinki Dinky, the Parsha, the Purim falls out. Normally, it wasn't a leap year. Moshe put a masveh on his face. And that's the word mask. Ooh, I don't think that's a Kawinki Dinky. Why did he put a mask on his face? That's a very good question. Why did he put him, and when did he put a mask on his face? Many people are confused, Reuven. When he was teaching Torah to the Yidden, did he wear a mask? No. You look at the text, you'll see. When he was speaking to God, he was not wearing a mask. When he was speaking to the Yidden, he was also not wearing a mask. When did he put the mask on? When he went to pay his bills in the post office, or standing in line in Supersal to check out. Look at Rashi. When he was not engaged in teaching Torah or speaking to God, but he was engaged in mundane, that he had to help his wife do the dishes and take out the garbage. You know the story. This guy wouldn't take out the garbage, a koilel guy. So the wife came, you know, Reuben, it's the story. This koilel guy said he can't take out the garbage because he's beneath him. So the wife of the koilel guy went to the Rosh Yeshiva to complain. My wife wouldn't take out the garbage. So the next morning, who knocks on the door? The Rosh Yeshiva. Oh, Rebbe, what do I owe this honor to? He says, I'm here to take out the garbage. I heard it's beneath your dignity. It's a true story. Okay, no, until last week, but anyway. The Rosh Yeshiva, from one of the Rosh Yeshivas in the Panovich Yeshiva. So anyway, Moshe also took out the garbage. And he helped his wife with the dishes. You know that. It's not, it's true. It doesn't say that.
Rabbi, I'm in trouble now.
My Rebbe Rav Pam Zatzal had great rabbis. He said when people would come to him, husbands would come to him with complaints against the wife. This complaint, that complaint. You know what he said, Hanoch? When was the last time you helped her do the dishes? When was the last time you vacuumed the rug? When was the last time you cleaned the house? That's what he said. What are you complaining about her? You are supposed to, Ezer Connect, you're supposed to help her with the dishes and with the children and with the baths and cleaning the house. Don't tell me you're too busy steiging. Rav Pam, Zecher Tzadik B'Racha. So Moshe Rabbeinu took out the garbage. And he spelled online to pay the bills in the post office. Then he wore a masveh. Why? That's a good question. Why? Because the Shekhinah was on his face. And it's not proper when you're taking out the garbage to have the Shekhinah exposed. Or when you engage in mundane pursuits. So therefore he put on the masveh. But other times he was not wearing the masveh. When he was teaching Torah or speaking to God, he was not wearing the masveh. But anyway, here you have what another strong hint. The word mask in English, Chanoch, is masveh. That's what it is in Hebrew. And again, the Parshas of the week of God is always wearing a mask. And so are we. Our mask is our bodysuit. And his mask is what? Nature. Reuven, you're Gematria man. Ha-teva is Gematria Elohim. God is wearing the mask of nature. And we're also wearing a mask. Our mask is our bodysuit. There's an amazing Rashi in Tillim 22, Reuven. Now Rashi doesn't usually speak about Kabbalah, but in Tillim 22, you can look it up, which is Ayelat HaShachar, which is a Tillim about Purim, Rashi says something incredible, like from left field. Speaks about Esther, Ayelat HaShachar. He says, Shahametim b'shas yitziat nishmatam royim pnei hashchina. Shahametim b'shat nitilat nishmatam royim pnei hashchina. Which means, when a person dies, he gets to see the face of God. Now that's very strange that Rashi, who doesn't speak about Kabbalah, sticks this in from left field in the Psalm 22 that speaks about Purim, Chanoch. What is Rashi telling me? That in this world, we wear a mask and he wears a mask. Our mask is called our body. His mask is called Hateva. But when we die, we take off our mask, and he takes off his mask.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
Great.
The game is up. When we die, we graduate. The game is over. Chanoch. The game is up. The mask comes off. Rashi, Yochana, in Tillim 22. Very strange that Rashi would quote Kabbalah. But this is what he says. That's pretty amazing. Now, let's get can't forget the Haftorah, of course. Now, the Haftorah speaks about Ahab, not the Arab, Achav, one of the most wicked kings of the tribes of Israel. Now, what is the connection between the Parsha and the Haftorah? Well, there are many connections. In the Parsha, the Jews worship the golden calf. In the Haftorah, the Jews are worshiping the Baal. Right? But it's much more than that. Much more than that. In the Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu transgresses a Torah law. There's a Torah law not to erase the name of God. When Moshe smashed the tablets, Ira, what did he do? He erased the name of God. God's name was engraved on the tablets. When he smashed them, he transgressed a negative commandment. Lo yisasen kein l'Hashem Elohechem. I think Moshe Rabbeinu read the Rambam, the Sefer HaMitzvot, Rose. It says, if you break a vessel with God's name on it, it's like you ate pig. Are you with me on this? So holy Moses transgressed one of the negative commandments. He shattered the vessel. What's the vessel? The 10 Commandments with God's name on it. He destroyed it, transgressed a negative commandment. And he did it. And in the Haftorah, you got to look at the Haftorah, please. Look at the Haftorah, which begins by Yishlach Achov, b'chol b'nei Yisrael, the second where the Spartan begin. She says, by Yishlach Achov, b'chol b'nei Yisrael. Achov sent.
Verse 20.
Verse 20. Okay?
Chapter 18, verse 20.
Chapter 18, verse 20. Okay? Please go to verse 30. Please go to verse 30. Any volunteers?
Elias said to the entire
Eliyahu said to the people,
draw near to me, and
the people
all
approached,
the people drew near to him.
and
He repaired the disassembled altar of Hashem.
he repaired the destroyed altar of Hashem. See the word harus? Who knows Hebrew here? Rebuvain. See verse Lamed? Harus in Hebrew means what? Destroyed. He repaired the destroyed altar of Hashem. Who did? Eliyahu. Why would anybody want to destroy an altar? Abba Berkowitz, you with me on this? This was an altar that existed before Solomon built the temple. Before Shlomo HaMelech built the temple, you could serve God in your backyard. You could build an altar called a bama and sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Beseder Gamur. But once the temple was built, once the temple was built, offering a sacrifice to God on a bama was the same sin like eating on Yom Kippur, Rose. How do I know? Because they're both chayiv karet. So when Solomon built the temple, he sent out a mod squad. He sent out a Haredi squad to destroy what? All the bamas. Because it's a michshol to leave them standing. How do you say michshol in English? A stumbling block. Because a person might forget and think that what? You can still use the bamas. Last year, I was sacrificing to God in a bama. What happened? What happened? The temple wasn't built last year. Once Solomon inaugurated the temple, sacrificing to God on a bama became a sin, chanoch, like eating on Yom Kippur. How do I know? Because it's the same punishment. So all of these bamas were destroyed by Solomon's, remember the Mod Squad? He sent them Haredi brigade to destroy them to avoid lifnei iver lo titen michshol. People might forget, last year I sacrificed to God on the bama, so I can do this year too. Oh, I forgot the temple standing chayiv karet. You know what that means? So therefore, he destroyed them all. So what did Eliyahu Navi do? He had to repair it, because he's going to what? Offer a carbon to God 94 miles outside of the Beis HaMikdash, because Mount Carmel in the speedometer is 94 miles outside of the Beis HaMikdash, odometer, and that's like eating on Yom Kippur. So in the Parsha, Moshe transgresses a Torah law. He smashes the tablets, destroying God's name. And in the Haftorah, Eliyahu Navi does a worse sin. Because for erasing God's name, you only get lashes. For sacrificing to God on a private altar, you chayiv karet. And both Moses and Eliyahu were Orthodox prophets. So what's the answer? Hara'at Sha'ah, Avi. Don't try this at home. It's called Hara'at Sha'ah. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin 93. A Navi can pull this. Don't try this at home. Right?
I'm a professional. That's what they said, right?
Right. If you have a resume, like Eliyahu and Moshe, a resume, a diploma that you are a bona fide Navi, you could suspend a Torah law as long as you say it's a temporary suspension. A Navi can get away with that. However, don't try this at home. You have to be a bona fide Navi. You have to say Sha'ah. If a Navi says from now on, this law is suspended forever, he's a Navi Sheker, Ayra is Chayiv Karet. He has to say Sha'ah, Lefi Sha'ah. Temporary. It's called a temporary injunction. Moses did it. Another strong connection between what? The Parsha and the Haftorah. Moshe did it in the Parsha by erasing God's name when he smashed the tablets. Here, Eliyahu Navi rebuilds a bama that was destroyed. And he sacrifices a carbon to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is called Shchutei Chutz. Normally it's Chayev Karet. Now how could he get away with that? So if you look at Pasuk 37, actually Pasuk 36, Reuben, you want to read that in English? Pasuk 36. Vehi ba'alot ha-mincha. When was Eliyahu Navi answered? Mincha time. Even though he davened Shachris and Arvis, he was only answered Mincha. See verse 36, buddy? Vehi ba'alot ha-mincha. So the Torah learns from here of all the three prayers, Rose, which is the most important? Mincha. Because Shachrit, Wall Street did not open up yet. Myriv, Wall Street is closed. But Mincha, in the middle of the hectic day of mergers and executions, mergers and acquisitions, you take time out. God says that's a Mincha to me. What does the word Mincha mean? Present. So that's the most important prayer, Avram, that God appreciates the most. Customers are waiting, conference calls, time out. Mincha. God said that's a present. It's the most important prayer. And therefore, Eliyahu Navi was only answered when? Mincha time. And what does he say in verse 36, Reuben? See the verse? You have that?
Then when it was time to offer the afternoon obligation, Mincha, basically.
Yeah.
Yahweh the prophet came forward and said, "The Lord Hashem, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are Hashem, God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that at your command I have done all these things."
Which things? To break the Torah. To offer a sacrifice to God on a bava. That's like eating Yom Kippur. God, I'm doing it because you told me to do it.
Not only that, but he evokes the Avot. This is the same thing that
The Avot.
Moshe did back in the Parshas.
Excellent, and a strong connection.
The same names.
Exactly. Right? The Rosh Chodesh, I'm doing all of these things with the Varcha. And it's your word, Asiti. I am doing as Kol Advarim, all of these bizarre things. The Jews were freaking out. You're an Orthodox Navi. What are you building a bama to Hashem? What's wrong with you? You're eating on Yom Kippur. Hello? So he said, God, you told me to do this. Harat Shah, a Navi can do this. So here you have another strong connection between the Parsha, where Moshe breaks one of the Torah laws, Eliyahu, but of course it's much more than that. Now look what he says in verse 37, Reuben. Aneni Hashem, Aneni. Answer me, God, answer me. V'yedu Amazeh, this people shall know, Ki ata Hashem Elohim, Va'ata hasibota et libam achranit. You have caused their hearts to go backwards. The English say that? You have caused their hearts to go backwards. God, it's your fault the Jews are sinning. I think it's called blame the victim. Rose, we have that in the Parsha. We have that in the Parsha. Where Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, the exact same idea in the Parsha. In the Parsha. Exodus 32, Pasuk 31. So here, Eliyahu Navi blames God for the Jews' sin. You have made their hearts go backwards, God. It's your fault. And in the Parsha, we have the same idea, Reuven, in Exodus 32, Pasuk 31. Moshe returned to God, and he said, the people have sinned a great sin. They've built a golden calf disco. So why does he have to say that? God knows we built a golden calf, and the people know. So why does Moses have to tell God, Vayasu lahem elehei zav? They built a golden calf. So Rashi says, God, it's your fault that the Jews build a golden calf. What do you mean it's your fault? I think it's called Rose, Blame the Victim. So Rashi gives an amazing mashal. You hear this? Mashal Melech. A king had one beloved child. You hear this, Rechano? And he wined and he dined him. You hear? He wined and dined him, and he pitched the mice, most fashionable clothes, and he gave him a saddlebag full of gold coins, and he put him bepetach bet zonot. How do you translate in English?
Whorehouse.
He put him right in front. I don't want to get, yeah. He put him bepetach bet zonot. A king had one beloved child. And he oiski puts him, wined and dined him, dressed him to the nines, gave him 2 saddlebags full of gold coins, and he put him right in front of the red light district in Las Vegas. Ma yasa ben shelo yechta? What do you expect the son to do? God, you set him up. It's your fault, God. That's what Holy Moses said. So he's blaming God, just like Eliyahu Novi is what? Blaming God. Now, did God fire either one of them? No. The Zohar HaKadosh says, when was Moshe zoichet to have the Shekhinah on his face? When he uttered this defense. Instead of being upset with him, Yehuda, God rewarded him by having the Shekhinah on his face. So I would think God would fire. How dare you blame me for your people's sin? No, he blamed the victim, capital V. So the Zohar says, L'chein zacha Moshe l'shchina al panav. I think it's called the blame game. What's it all about, Ira? What's going on over here? The powerful message over here. He doesn't fire Eliyahu Navi either. He gets a raise. When does he fire Eliyahu Navi?
Oh, when he says something bad.
When he says, the Yidden have abandoned your bris. When does he fire Moses? When he says the people are rebellious. Incredible idea, Rose. A Navi has a dual role. Dual role. When he's speaking to the people directly, take off the gloves. Pull more punches. When he's speaking about the people to Hashem, only good report. So when Eliyahu Navi and Moshe were doing that, when they were speaking to the people, they were rebuking them. They're speaking about the people to God, they were defending them. Then they got a raise. Once Eliyahu Navi began telling God, the people are no good, you're no good, you're no good. And once Moses said to God, the people are rebellious, they both got fired, says Rashi. I hope they had an IRA. I don't know, did they have a pension plan? Both of them got fired. Rashi says so.
They got good morals.
Okay. A powerful message over here. So my Rebbe Rapam, that's I'll explain. If a parent knows his child is not beseder, you're going to go tell him his child is not beseder? You're steching him. God is our beloved parent. He doesn't want to hear we're not beseder. He knows that. He wants malamed schus. Your kid is not beseder. Never he had a bad hair day. He didn't take his spirulina. What? A father wants to hear only good about his parent. And Rapam said something even more. Maybe I shouldn't repeat it, but he said it. He said, perhaps that's why the Mashiach is not coming for so many centuries. We are constantly telling God that the Yidden are no good. This is Arusha, he's Arusha, he's Arusha. God doesn't want to hear that. Speak to the Russian, tell him he's no good. But when you're speaking to God, don't say one negative word about Yidden, said Rapam. That's what's delaying the Mashiach. Ira, I wouldn't repeat it, but I have to. That's what he said. And he's learned from Moshe and Eliyahu Navi. To the Russia, tell him like it is. Take off the gloves. But when you're speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how dare you mention that the Yid is not beseder? Which parent wants to hear that about his child? It hurts the parent. Imagine how God feels, says Rapam. We're saying to him that your kinder are no good. He doesn't want, he wants malamed zchus. God, you caused them to go backwards. You gave them spiritual cholesterol. You know what Rabbi said. He gave them cataracts and spiritual cholesterol. You hear? It's your fault. But once they started to complain to God about the Yidden, Avi, they both lost their job. Eliyahu Navi and... you have a book in front of you? Verse 37. No, you don't have a book? He said, Va'ata, you God, hasibot et liba machranit. You, God, have caused their hearts to go backwards. You took away their free will. The Rambam Hilchos Tshuva says, God took away their free will. Because a person can cross a red line. And where God will take away his free will, he can no longer do tshuva. That's part of the onish. So Eliyahu Navi is saying, what do you want?
What's the proof?
Because Eliyahu Navi says so. The act on you, God, hashibot et liba machranit. You caused them to go backwards. So what do you want from them? Give them back their free will, and they'll do tshuva. And the Rambam learns this puzzle, that a person can cross a red line where it's called the point of no return. That's part of the punishment. So then what do you want from the guy? That's Eliyahu Navi. Better than Perry Mason. Like Alan Dershowitz. Right? What's it called? Beautiful. That's the Paroi syndrome. The Rabbi Hilchos Tshuva has a whole thesis on it. That's what God did to Paroi. That's what God did to the Yidden in the days of Ahab. The Pharaoh, he took away their free will.
Can you elaborate exactly how he took away their free will here in days of Ahab?
The Rabbi Hilchos Tshuva says, what these words mean, you have caused them to go backwards, you have removed their free will. There comes a certain point where a person can do so many averot where God will remove from him the bechira.
So what did they do here exactly?
They were worshiping Getchkis, right and left.
So how did
Baal here, a Baal there, right? A Baal here, a Baal there, the Baalim, you know.
So why are they not guilty? Why did Hashem take away their free will?
So that's a catch-22. So Eliyahu Navi is saying they want to do tshuva, but you are preventing them because you took away the free will. So he was defending the Yidden. Okay? And that's the dual role of a Navi. When you speak to the Jews directly, you're supposed to rebuke them without any gloves. When you're speaking about the Jews to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, you're supposed to defend them because a parent only wants to hear good about his child. You know, he knows his child is not the Seder. What are you pouring salt on the wound? Right? Yes?
So, it was, years back, there was this, mass murder.
A mass murderer, who's that?
Who's his name? Whitmore? Gary Whitmore?
Yasser Arafat.
No.
Abu Mamzer.
Anyway, at some point,
Yeah.
the parents, who are the creator of this child,
Yes.
the father in particular, has to confront.
So he says he's insane.
He didn't say that.
Well, what did he say? He's insane. Anyway, there's so many messages in Parshas we can spend a year on this Parsha that speak to today. Current events in Haftorah. Ooh, I didn't forget. Current events in the Torah. Fasten your seatbelt. Nebuch, we're confronted with tragedies. Nebuch. Right, Mickey? How are we supposed to deal with tragedy? How? We don't know why it happens, but we do know how to deal with it. If you look at Exodus 31, Pasuk 2, Nechama, you got to fasten your seatbelt for this. Tragedies, lo yaleinu, that are happening. We don't know why, but the Torah tells us how to deal with it. If you look at Exodus 31, Pasuk 2. I'll wait. Avram, you there? God says, behold, I have called the name of Betzalel, ben Uri, ben Hur, Lamate Yehuda. Who is the chief architect and artist of the Mishkan rolls? Who is it? Betzalel. Did he attend the Betzalel Academy?
Not yet.
On the Chol Betzalel?
Not yet.
I don't think so. But it's amazing. Some Sprecher says, when God told Abraham, Your kids are going to be slaves somewhere. God never said Egypt. He said they'll be slaves in a land not their own. It could have been Mexico, could have been Puerto Rico. So Chassam Sofer is incredible. Why did God choose Egypt? Said the Chassam Sofer, because in the ancient world, the chief artisans of working with gold and fashioning golden designs and was Egypt. So therefore the Jews had to do their slave time not in Puerto Rico, Yochanan. In Egypt, for 210 years they observed, they learned how to work with gold. So they made a golden Getske, but they also knew how to make a golden Mishkan. You see, you can do it my way or the highway. They learned how to work with gold. Whatever it was, they learned how to work with gold. So they're going to need that talent, not to build an egel, but have free will, but they'll need that talent to what? To do the golden Mishkan. So therefore, they were not exiled in Mexico. Dafke Mitzrayim, look at Chassam Sofer knew that the leader in the ancient world working with gold and gold images and gold crafting was, look it up, ancient Egypt.
Mexico, they work with silver.
Okay, but this is gold.
That was much later.
But anyway, so what's the point over here? Who was the chief art? Why did God appoint him? Bezalel was the grandson of Hur. Hur was murdered by the mob to try to stop them from building the Egel Hazav. Right? Miriam's son. But Hur was the grandfather of Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur. So Bezalel was the grandson. He saw his grandfather being murdered by the mob. He could have been bitter, could have been angry at God. This is what God allowed. But no, he was the symbol of a correct reaction to a tragic event. Turned the tragedy into a creative experience to get closer to God. So he became the architect and the artist of the Mishkan. He wasn't bitter, he wasn't angry. He grew from the tragic event of the murder of his grandfather. He turned the tragedy into what, buddy? Spiritual growth. The Mishkan became the kapora for the Chet HaEgel. The Mishkan became the tikkun for the Chet HaEgel. So the Torah is teaching us the proper response to a tragic event. We don't know why it happens, but how to respond, not to be bitter, not to be angry, but to grow from it. That it should bring you closer to Hashem. To turn the tragedy into an opportunity of what, Yehuda? Spiritual growth. Who taught us that? Bezalel. And therefore God chose him. Dafke, the grandson of Hur, who was murdered. Tragedies happen. We don't know why.
Any commentaries why Hur was murdered?
He tried to stop the mob.
No, commentaries that why he got that homage from Hashem.
Why he got that onish. Why the innocent people get murdered every day here. We don't know. Why the good suffer.
Good captain.
We don't know, right? But we don't know why, but the Torah teaches me the proper response to tragedy. Don't be bitter, don't be angry, become better. Grow from the experience. Do something to bring you closer to God. Who taught me that? Bezalel. He could have sulked, could have been angry at God. You want me? Forget about it. I'm out of here. Cut off. No. He didn't do that, yes?
Yeah, and also in the next passage, I was just noticed it.
Go ahead.
This is not the matter, just the word turns around. It says that he gave him, he put into him ruach, the spirit of, all these different things talking about being.
Right.
And ruach is word turned around. It's the next passage. How much?
Which
This
is?
is the one you just said.
Yes.
Word becomes ruach. He turned it.
Wow. Wow. Reuben, you're amazing, Reuben. Reuben, the word chur, Reuben, you're scaring me. Chur, rearrange the letters. The very next puzzle.
Get him a job at Dasker Sheep.
Reuben, I'm telling you, the word chur, rearrange the letters, you get ruach. Reuben, you're wonderful.
Anagram.
Rearrange the letters, you get Right? He turned the tragedy of his grandfather for it gave him a ruach Elohim not to be bitter, not to be angry at God. Reuven, you're wonderful. We have the same wavelength.
Scary, isn't it?
Right? ESP. Extra special person, Reuven, you are. That's incredible, but you just thought of that?
Just now smart.
Wow. And that's not Gwinky either, right? What?
That was always the philosophy of Lubavitch.
Lubavitch.
I remember when...
Bezalel was a Lubavitchnik?
No.
Maybe he was, I don't know. What?
Their philosophy is, whenever they suffer tragedy,
Go ahead.
the response is to build and go on and on and on. When there was the
Bezalel taught me that.
when the murder was in Mumbai,
In Mumbai, go ahead.
remember they were killed?
Right, that was a young couple.
So I was just in Mumbai, by the way. So the answer was to build yeshivas, to build places, to build more and more and more. That's the answer.
That's the Jewish response to tragedy. Who taught me that? Bezalel. What is the name? What's in the name, Yochanan? What does Bezalel mean?
In the shadow of
The
God.
shadow of God. Bezalel means the shadow of God.
So would you say, Rabbi, that this is the purpose of the Jew in relation to B'nai Noah, to teach the B'nai Noah?
Of course.
About the tragedy
That-
that they haven't
right.
learned.
Have to learn. That's right. Nachon. That's right. But what a powerful message. Now the Jews had all of this gold, right? They had all of this gold, right? Remain that God gave them all of this gold and silver, taken out of Egypt. The challenge of life is to channel wealth into the Mishkan and not into a golden calf disco. Person has a lot of wealth. He can either go to a Mishkan or Chas v'Sholom go to the golden calf disco in Las Vegas. You make the call. That's the challenge of life. The Jews were overwhelmed with all of this wealth. What are we going to do with it?
The Saudis make Rolls Royces out of pure gold.
Right? What are you going to do with it? Make a Mishkan out of it? A Chas v'Sholom what? A golden calf disco. We have to decide. Now, you read Yehuda Levi Kuzari. You know, he has this discussion with the king. What are you Jews off the wall? 40 days after you heard Hashem speaking to you. Shoshana, 40 days later. We heard God speaking to us. 40 days later, God spoke to us on Bar Sivan. That's Shavuos. 40 days later, Shivos B'Tammuz. How could we build a golden calf and worship it? What are we, nuts? This is what the king of the Khazars asked Yehuda Levi.
A small number.
But the other Jews stood by and let it happen. Who said all it takes for evil to flourish is for good people to do nothing? I think Winston Churchill said it. So Aviva, how could that be? So Yehuda Levi wants to defend us to the king of the Khazars. And he says, listen, it's not what you think. Their goal was they needed they're not stupid. This Getchka took me out of Egypt. Their goal was they needed a tangible item to focus on. God is invisible. He's abstract. I can't relate. I need a tangible object that will help me focus on God. Is that so wrong? Yes and no. Yehuda Levi says, we do it. You're sitting down, Chama? Yehuda Levi says, we do it. How do we call fear of God? Yirat Shamayim. Fear of the sky. Yochana, I'm afraid of the sky. Isn't it bizarre? Think of it. I'm a Yirat Shamayim. I fear the sky. That's what you're saying, right? Yehuda Levi in his day, they were saying it too. He lived in the 1100s. He says, why do we refer to a God-fearing person as a Yirat Shamayim? Why not the Yirat Hashem? Buddy, you sitting down? Says the great Yehuda Levi Kuzari, God is invisible. He's too abstract. When I look at the sky, it's a tangible symbol of who lives there. So that's okay. They just took it a step further. They got them famished. How do you say that in English? Famished. Confused. Yehuda Levi, how defended the Yidden? Avi, you with me? What did he say Yirat Shemayim for? Yirat Shemayim. What am I saying? I'm afraid of the sky.
Of the infinite.
1 minute, I'm afraid of the sky. We mean I'm afraid of the one who lives in the sky. But I don't see him. He's too abstract. So if I look at the sky, Avi, it helps me focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
The sky is infinite, the God is infinite. You cannot...
So they took that a step further. But that's wrong. They crossed the line.
Said that did not represent God, but represent Moshe. So
Well, I'm taking Yehuda Levi. I'm going with Yehuda Levi's shita in the Kuzari. So they just took it a step further. They crossed the line. Never fablunged. How do you say that? Mixed up. But it's not as bad as it sounds. But anyway, pretty bad. But next time we say Yirat Shemayim, Yechana, I'm afraid of the sky. I'm afraid of the one who...
Shemayim heaven?
Heaven. Well, it means sky. I'm afraid of heaven. Am I afraid of heaven? I'm afraid of God in heaven. But I can't see God. I can see heaven. It helps me focus. And the same idea of Osuli Migdash v'shechanti b'tocham. God says, build me a Migdash, and I will dwell where? In the building? B'tocham. So what do we need a Migdash for? God dwells inside of us, right? V'shechanti b'toch b'nei Yisrael. Doesn't say he lives in the building. V'shechanti b'toch b'nei Yisrael. I dwell. So what? So the Lubavitcher Rebbe explains this kasha, no hakasha. Why was the Migdash covered with animal skin, the Mishkan?
Under my skin.
So the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, when you look at the Mishkan with the animal skin, you remember God doesn't dwell there. I've got you under my skin. But I can't relate to that. So when I look at a tangible Mishkan, an animal skin, it reminds me, it helps me focus that God dwells under my skin. But without the Mishkan, I can't relate. It's too abstract. Lubavitcher Rebbe, why we need a Mishkan? When God dwells inside of us. Nechama, you see what it's all about? Human beings need tangible symbols to focus. And therefore God appears to Nevi'im in human form. Yecheskel describes God. It's frightening. You see him sitting on a throne. Yeshaya, Yecheskel. God is not physical. But he puts that image in the prophet's mind. Otherwise the prophet can't relate to the message. He's fablunged. The only prophet that did not see a physical image of God was the greatest prophet.
Was who?
The greatest prophet, Moshe. Because he was such a high level, he could relate to God the way God really is. Invisible. Other Nevi'im weren't there. So God had to picture himself to them in human form. Otherwise, they just would be lost in space. I can't relate what you're telling me. I'm totally disoriented. But holy Moses didn't need to see an image, yes?
Wasn't there when he saw the back of Hashem or something?
So what does that mean, he saw the back? He saw the kesher of the tefillin. What did he mean?
What is it?
What? He saw the love knot between God and the Jewish people. Good question. He saw, what did he see? Does God wear tefillin? It's a metaphor. Yes, in good kasha. Abraham Burke was asking God. We just said that Moshe didn't see, God didn't have to picture himself in a physical image because Moshe could relate to the message without a physical image at such a high level. So why does the Gemara Brachas, page 7, say that God showed him? Well, what did he show him? Just the knot of the tefillin. So Chazal say, what does that mean? No matter how sinful we are, God and us are connected. A love knot. That was a sin. That he was shown. No matter how far we go low, after the Chet Egel, Moshe might have think that what? Finished. So God showed them the love knot of the tefillin, the kesher. Even if the Jews sinned with the egel, Moses, you and me and you will love knotted together, despite the egel.
Doesn't it also say there, it says, I think, it says, what's written in God's
tefillin. Right. Again, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor that no matter how sinful we are, I can't stop loving you. Love not, the tefillin. Versteh? Moshe thought it's all over. So when did he show him the love not of the tefillin? When? Right after the Chet HaEgel. Don't despair, holy Moses. The knot can never be untied. Yes.
But then why did Kodesh Baruch Hu tell Moshe Rabbeinu that he'd start all over?
Oh, Nechama, you're cooking with gas. What did God tell him? I'll destroy them and start over with you. So if Moshe would have said what? B'vakasha.
Make my day.
God would have said, you're fired. You failed the test. This was a test. Just like Abraham with the Akedah, God was testing him. He would have said yes. You're fired. Moses would have been fired. And who would have taken over? Yeshua, the Zakanim. He passed the test. It was a test like the Akedah, Rose. Was God serious? He was testing him. How are you going to react? He passed with flying colors, but he could have failed, and he would have gotten fired. There's always a plan B. How do I know? The Megillah, Ira. What does Mordechai say to Esther? If you don't want to do it, Rebach Mahatzalah,
Same thing.
Rebach Mahatzalah Yamoid La Yehudim Memokam Acher. There's going to be a plan B, but you're fired. You'll be totally erased from history. You have free will. You don't have to do it. God always has to have a plan B, Ruvain, because we have free will. But you're kaput, Esther. God has to go to plan B, and there has to be a plan B. You're fired. Forget it. So she could have said, okay, I resign. Like Moses. She passed. Abraham passed. Moses passed. This is only a test. Remember that NBC? This is only a test. Remember 1960s?
Testing 1, 2.
No, this is only a test.
I'm over it.
Emergency broadcast.
Emergency broadcasting system, this is only a test. Remember that? So, the Ramchal says, all of us go through terrible tests in life.
Every minute.
And the purpose of life is to be tested. If you know it's a test, it makes it a little easier. Keeps repeating, this is only a test. And who's watching me? He's grading me. He's testing me. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, or they go shopping.
Right.
You make the call. Thank you very much.